All right, welcome everybody. We are back here on the Swoop. I think that's what we were going to call it.
Yeah, that's what we're going to call it.
Anyway, I'm Marko, sports editor for the BG News, Falcon Media sports director, and I am joined by Shayne Nissen, sports reporter. What's your title with RSO?
RSO, I think it's programming director or I think assistant exec director. It's a programming director.
Something like that.
Programming director is what I am for the BGRSO, but I also write for the BG News too. So
exactly, he's doing all sorts of stuff.
Trying
so
my best.
We pretty much had to get into the studio today because of just how jam-packed of a sports day it was on Saturday.
Yeah, that was crazy day.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, we had a bunch of people there at the time to kind of cover it, which was thankful. So, I mean, if you have not heard the news, so Saturday at, I want to say it was probably an hour before tip-off.
Yeah, I was on my way to the game when I saw, I think I was literally getting gas, and I just went on Twitter and checked it, and I was like, what's going on? What?
Yeah. So, again, anyways, if you haven't heard it, about an hour before tip-off against Toledo on Saturday, former starting point guard Dylan Frye, the athletic department announced, had left the basketball program for personal reasons. And this had just come after he, broke the record for three-pointers, and he has the program record for three-pointers, 229. Actually, I think he had made it up to 230 after the game against Central Michigan. But it was just a huge shock right before a huge game against Toledo. And I mean, there's a lot of speculation out there as to what went down or what possibly happened. But we're not going to get into, assuming who said what or, what exactly happened before that game on Saturday. But I think what we can't talk about is just the timeline of events was everything seemed to be normal the week of.
Yes.
Thursday he talked to media.
Yep.
It seemed as though he was going to be ready to go for everything. Friday, I mean, I'm assuming they had practice. But Saturday, it was about, I want to say maybe an hour and a half before tip-off. People started to notice that he was not out there warming up or anything, and that Trey Diggs and I want to say somebody else were taking extra shots and stuff like that right after the women's game at 1:00, and then it was announced first that he would not be playing in the Toledo game, and then it developed a little bit more, and then it was announced that he would be leaving the program. So Shayne, you were at the game.
I was.
You were able to kind of see firsthand how everybody at one time just kind of reacted to the news.
Yeah, I guess it was like when you walked in, I got there decently late, so I got there about 30 minutes before tip-off.
Yeah.
And it was the arena was already, getting pretty full.
Sold-out game.
It was a sold-out game. The reason why I got there late is because I was stuck in traffic
I would imagine,
at BG.
Yeah.
So it took me a while to actually be able to get to the media parking lot. But once I got in there, I mean, it was probably 3/4 of the way full already when I got inside.
Yeah.
And you could tell it was very subdued, I guess. Not what you would expect right before a Toledo game. I was talking with Chase Bachman, who does BG24 here. He's sports director for BG24, and that's what we both said. Like, it just seems very subdued in here. Not as much energy as you would expect. Kind of just taking the life out of the room. Once the game got started and everything, obviously people get into the game, and it was probably the loudest I've ever heard the Stro. So I think
just because of the sheer amount of people.
Yes. I mean, this is the third sellout in Stro Center history, and the third since last year, because there was 2 sellouts last year.
Yep.
But once the game got going, I don't think it made that much of a difference.
I think people quickly forgot about it.
Yeah, I mean, once the game started going, obviously you just get into cheering for your team and whatnot, and it goes away. But before the game, you could definitely tell that it was on people's minds, and people were talking about just very subdued kind of energy inside. As for how it affected Bowling Green's play in general, I think that it's very hard to tell. I think my only question would be, how would somebody like Trey Diggs, who is maybe unexpectedly starting right away? I mean, he had 2 pretty good games leading up to the Toledo game. He didn't start. It was Devin
Ziegler.
But Trey Diggs definitely did play more than what he normally does.
Yeah.
First half, Devin Ziegler came in. Literally, he's running the point guard. Literally, first pass he makes gets stolen by Toledo, taken to the other end for a layup. Or I think he got fouled, and then he made. I think he only made 1, but this is besides the point. And you could tell he was nervous. I mean, it's the first start.
I'm sure
he's a freshman. It's his first start ever.
Yeah.
As and it's against Toledo in front of a sold out crowd. You could tell he was nervous, and I think Michael Huey realized that, and he didn't really play much in the first half at all.
Yeah.
But second half, he started the second half, and he played well in the second half. I mean, he had, I want to say he had 6 points or something like that.
He had a total of 8 points.
Yeah, he had 8 points. You're looking at it right now.
Yeah.
He had total 8 points.
He only played 14 minutes, but he had 8 points.
Most of those in the second half. I think once he got taken out in the first half, because you could just tell he wasn't. I don't know if ready's the word, but you could just tell he was a little bit off.
It seemed like
his
maybe
first game.
Yeah, he probably was just a little rattled.
First game starting as a freshman, obviously, any of us would be the same way. But he. I don't think he played much. Most of that 14 minutes came in the second half. And he played well. And he played well for a good stretch in the second half. I think he had a steal in the second half, a big steal that got the crowd going a lot in that. And he played well in defense as well in the second half, guarding Toledo's guards, who were very difficult to guard. But, yeah, he played well. Trey Diggs also, I mentioned, because I was tweeting about the game, I mentioned Trey Diggs. He came in for a spell, and I think he had 6 straight points for them. Kind of midway through the first half, and he kind of energized and got things going for them. So he played well as well. But like I said, it's going to be very hard to tell how this is going to impact
going forward
the whole team until we start seeing more games. Like tomorrow night, we're playing Akron, who's another very, very good team in the MAC.
Yep.
That'll be a lot telling too, going on the road. To Akron. Both two teams, I think they're 7-3 in the MAC. We're 9-2 in the MAC. So that'll be very interesting. I think you'll get more of a gauge a little bit as to how we do in that game. But it does worry me not having his scoring, because we're already cutting it close against pretty much everyone we play.
Yeah.
We're not blowing out anybody. I mean,
no, certainly
it doesn't matter who we play.
Of every single game is somehow they find a way to win by
it doesn't matter whether or not we're playing, Buffalo, who's one of the better teams in the MAC, or Eastern Michigan, who's the worst team in the MAC. We're winning by very slim margin.
And it's coming down to the couple of last and take Toledo. It comes down to literally the last second.
Yeah, and that is what worries me, is we were able to get out of there barely with a win against Toledo. I mean, they came on really strong the very end of the second half, and we controlled most of the game against Toledo, but then they started hitting shots, and you could tell that we really were leading heavily on Justin Turner to score in the second half. I think I mentioned in the article I wrote after the game, he had, I believe he had 6 points in the first half, and he ended up with 21.
Yeah.
So you could definitely tell we became a little bit more one-dimensional in the the second half. First half, we shared the ball very well. Everyone was scoring. I think 6 players had more than or had at least 5 points in the first half. But the second half, you could definitely tell we were very reliant on Justin Turner to score the ball. And if that's going to be the case for the rest of the season, you could run into some problems because now you're a one-trick pony. I mean, you know that this guy, Justin Turner, is going to have to score 20 a night to give Bowling Green a chance. And someone else needs to step up. Daquan Plowden's obviously playing well. I mean, obviously more score for him would be well, but you're going to need guys like Trey Diggs.
It seems to me like
he's going to have to score a little bit more too.
But I mean, he seems to be stepping up.
He played
time.
well in that game too.
Yeah.
So those guys are going to have to step up, and they did for large parts of that game against Toledo. But you could definitely tell towards the end of the half that they became a little bit more one-dimensional, and they were really leaning heavily on Justin Turner. And I mean, he won it in the end. I mean, he made plenty of clutch buckets at the end.
What everybody seemed to be talking about leading up to the season is probably what you would have expected out of Justin Turner night in and night out.
Yeah.
Because that was a MAC player of the year kind of caliber night where you're starting off slow, but you're carrying the game in the second half basically. Yeah. And then winds up with the foul
at the end,
at the very end, which
I mean, controversial. I mean,
what was your take on that?
I was on the other end of the court. It was hard to tell because when I looked at it, watching it, I thought he tapped him on the hand or something because the shot was way short. So I thought that was the case.
A lot of people, from what I heard, kind of gathered was, if you looked at the replay, you could tell that the ball maybe he did,
but from what because in the post-game press conference we talked to Huger, Turner, and then I can't think of Toledo's head coach's name. Can't think of his name right now. But we talked, all those guys, they talked about it, and of course that play was one of the big questions. But it was more one of those things where he didn't give him room to land. And he more got him with the body than he did with getting him in the arm. And of course, Toledo's coach is going to say he disagrees with it. Of course, Huger going to say he agrees with it. And that's just the way things are going to go. Yeah. Who knows whether Huger actually thought it was a foul when he watched it, or Turner. Turner said he expected the foul when he was going up for the jump shot because he thought he was getting a little bit too close. And all that stuff. It's really hard to look at it. I mean, if you look at the still shot, and this is coming from a student who goes to Bowling Green, the still shot, maybe you might call that in the first half of the game, but that just is one of those things where I don't understand why you call that to give them 2 free throws with 1 second left in the game. Yeah. Kind of a weak call in that sense, but yeah.
I think considering the game, I think normally that had happened at any other game. I think nobody would have a problem with it.
Yeah.
But considering the game, I think it was maybe expanded. The issue, I think, was expanded a little bit.
And if you look at the still shot, I just don't think, like I said before, I just don't know if that's the right call to make at the end of a game.
Yeah.
A big game like this. You just let them miss it. Nobody go to overtime because it wasn't like Bowling Green was going to lose if they missed that shot. It was tied. So you let them miss it, you go to overtime, and you decided there. But yeah, that was my kind of take after looking at everything. But yeah, I mean, it ended up going in Bowling Green's favor, and sometimes it's just what you need to win games like that.
Yeah,
so.
And then I mean, after the game, you kind of mentioned at least the question was maybe thrown out there. If there is a possibility that Dylan Frye could potentially rejoin the team, and essentially Michael Huger just said, we'll see. Just an overall, just a crazy couple of hours.
In the press conference, you could tell that I don't even think Huger or Justin Turner, the two that we talked to, I don't really even think they understood or knew exactly what was going on with Dylan Frye. I just, you could tell because the whole, he said we'll see thing, like, and the release that the athletics department put out, very vague. I mean, you can't really pull anything from it. All you know he's leaving for personal reasons. It's just very vague. You don't know the extent of what that is, and you could tell in the post-game press conferences, they didn't even really know what was going to happen now or in the future. Because normally, like, when you see something like that, it'll say, like, he's leaving the program. And I just said he was leaving the program. It never really specified whether he was going to be able to come back or whether or not he was just dropping off on Bowling Green entirely.
Yeah. From what we know, I don't want to speculate, but I would imagine he's still enrolled as a student here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So in that case, you would assume that he has a chance to come back, and that's why Huger said we'll see. I feel like, but none of this is, I mean, it's just very vague, and I don't think we're really going to find out much about it. I think that the athletic department is going to be real tight on it. Maybe in a few years something might come out. I don't know. Yeah. But it's a very odd situation, and it was interesting to hear what they had to say after the game, but and they're going to say, we wish him the best, all that stuff. But really, it was hard to glean what actually went on after the press conference because, like I said, I don't really think they knew what was actually going. I think they had a better grasp, and obviously we all do, or a better idea. But for a fact, and I don't think they know. I don't think they knew exactly at all the details at that point. I mean, maybe they do now. Maybe they've had a chance to talk to him more in depth about it. But at that point, they were just trying to get ready for the Toledo game. I don't think they really even figured out what exactly happened. So
yeah, kind of just a bizarre, turn of events in such a short amount of time, and then you have a game, and then you have to try and get your mindset ready for that, despite what happened, and then after the game, you're probably just happy in general because of the outcome of the game, and now, they'll definitely have a better mindset through a week of practice. If anything, right now they're just trying to figure out what their game plan is without somebody like.
It is going to be tough though because now not only you had to play Toledo on Saturday, but it's a pretty quick turnaround. They play Akron tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they're not going to get much practice against Akron without Dylan Frye. I'm sure they were already game planning for Akron.
I would assume their schedule changed as soon as, right after the Toledo game. They probably try to get as much practice in as possible.
Yeah, I would assume they were already game planning with Dylan Frye for Akron because obviously Toledo is a huge game, but Akron is a big game too because they're right at the top of the MAC as well. So,
yeah, well, definitely, it's going to be interesting. I mean, that's the type of guy that you could see being a difference maker in a MAC tournament.
Yes. Second leading scorer. And I was talking to people, you have to find a way to replace that. Whatever he's, I don't remember the exact, it's like 12 a game or something to that effect. You have to find a way to replace that scoring. And that's not going to be easy. I mean, Daquan Pollard's going to have to step up. Justin Turner's got to step a little bit, and you're going to get a little more off the bench from some of those guys. It's a
tough ask, but
yes.
I think you have to maybe expect a little something from a true freshman in Davin Ziegler. So it'll be interesting to see.
I don't think Ziegler is really going to be.
I think but the thing is like Ziegler was really just a background player.
Yeah, and
now I think you're maybe hoping he can do what he did against Toledo.
Yes, and Ziegler's not I just quote Dylan or the Huger said in the post game. He quoted. He said, "We told Ziegler before the game, or Davin Ziegler before the game, that we don't want you to be Dylan Frye. We want you to be Davin Ziegler."
Yeah,
and I think that really because Davin Ziegler is not going to be able to shoot like Dylan Frye can. He's not going to be able to score like Dylan Frye can. They don't need him to be that. They need him to be what he was in the second half, and you saw flashes of it. A very good defender. Got his hands on the ball a couple of times. Really made it hard for the guards from UT at times. And on offense, it's just a really quick guy. I mean, he can beat you off the dribble. He can get in the lane. He can finish a little bit, too. He's not going to be the shooter that Dylan Frye was. So, and I don't think he can be the scorer either. So, like I said, yeah, Dylan Ziegler is literally replacing him in the starting lineup, but it's going to have to be from other guys. They're going to have to replace Dylan Frye scoring. So,
will be certainly interesting to see how that develops. In terms of other stories around athletics, I mean, hockey got their first sweep since November. It was a rough stretch in January and December, coming into and going out of break. Really not much else to talk about besides that. I mean, it was just a combination of just luck not going their way and just not being able to convert on certain scoring chances I mean, you could argue maybe goaltending was a little inconsistent at times, but shouldn't have to rely on that, in my opinion. But, they did what they were supposed to do. They swept Anchorage, took overtime the first night, but Alec Rauhauser was able to find the back of the net. Luckily, in 5-on-5, if that had went down as a tie, I think you'd be looking at a different result on Saturday. But they were able to pull out the 4-1 win on Saturday. Just a different team that you saw on Saturday. That was they were completely dominant on Saturday. The shots were something not crazy, but they were something like 30. I want to say 32-11 or something like that. And then freshman Zach Rose gets his first collegiate win. Don't know if I've ever seen a goalie get their first win on 10 saves. Crazy. We have Chris Bugaiski in the studio. Do you want to... What Mikey you want? We're recording, so we're not really on air. We're just recording something real quick. So.
Sounds good.
But you were at the game on Friday.
I was.
I mean... I think they were lucky to get a win on Friday, considering what had happened in January.
Well, yeah, and that's what Valen and I talked about on the pregame show. It was, to the day, it was 2 months since your last home win.
Yeah.
That was against Huntsville in a 9-3 win.
Mm-hmm. And that was just a weird game, considering that they were down 3-0 in that game, and then came back and won 9-3.
Yeah, and, just the journey that this team has taken going way back in the beginning of the season when you beat Western Michigan 2 out of 3 times. You beat Notre Dame once at Compton, once here, and you're beating all these bigger name schools, and then all of a sudden you hit conference play, and it's just a completely different team took shape in the months of January and February.
Yeah.
Or December and January.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just weird. I think the break really kind of messed things up. I think we maybe saw a little bit of that last year, but considering the structure that Bergeron has, I mean, I can only assume. I mean, I don't want to speak on what is actually happening, but Bergeron last year was known for his structure around the team, and when you're doing this, it's going to be this way. You're going to pass to this person, and this person is going to do this, and this person is going to, on the other side of the ice, is going to do that, and it's going to result in this, and this is going to happen. Whereas I think the Eigner setup is a little bit more free-formed. Players have a little bit more levity when it comes to what they're going to do. And I think a lot of times what we saw during January was players playing a little bit more freely, and that resulting in a lot of turnovers going back the other way. Sometimes they would get a save here and there, but the other times some not-so-great goals were given up. But I think that was a big confidence booster going into probably their biggest stretch of the season now, and not necessarily biggest in terms of the teams that they're facing, but it is crucial that they have to maybe get another sweep in order to lock up any hope of locking up home ice with the 4 seed.
Yeah, because the last 4 weekends, including the previous weekend, 3 of those teams, I believe it was, so Anchorage last week, and then
Bemidji the week before that.
Yeah, and then the 2 prior weeks, the stretch was like you had Northern, Tech, Minnesota State, and then Bemidji.
Yep.
Arguably, I believe those are the top 4 teams in the conference right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you're going in a stretch where you're playing
the bottom half.
3 of the last 4 teams are the bottom half, and between I think it's Ferris State, Anchorage, who they just played, and then
they're playing Fairbanks this weekend, and then they have
it's
Ferris State at home,
and then Huntsville
on the road.
Between Huntsville, Ferris, and then Anchorage, I believe those teams have a combined like 13 wins.
Something just absurd that they have to take advantage of.
You have to take advantage of that. And in these looking back at it, including last week, well, now looking forward, you have 6 games left. You have to win at least 5 of the 6.
Yeah.
And one of those has to come against this weekend.
I think you're probably looking at your toughest series of the year this weekend, considering the way things are lining up. That is going to be their first round matchup, most likely, if they're able to pull off what they need to pull off, is Fairbanks and Bowling Green. Right now, Bowling Green is in the 5th seed. Alaska is in the 4th seed. They're trying to possibly catch up with Alaska to get home ice for that first round matchup. We'll see what happens. There's really nothing else of note right now when it comes to that. It's the same every year when it comes to hockey. It's just that they have a lot of depth to their lineup. There's nobody that's really carrying the team. I think the only other thing of note really is Brandon Cruz is 3 points away from 100 career points, which is nice to see. If he can pull that off, he'll be the second player to do it this year. Alec Rauhauser got 100 in Notre Dame back in November. So that'll be definitely something to look out for in Fairbanks. I don't know if he'd be able to get 3 points. Yeah, you know what? I could see that. That's reasonable to say he can get 3 points on the weekend in Fairbanks. But then coming back home will be against Ferris State senior night. A lot of things planned that weekend. I know they're celebrating their 50th anniversary that weekend as well against Ferris State. They have some other things planned with the Slater Family Ice Arena. But other than that, we will have baseball starting up soon as well. Baseball and softball. They play. I don't think softball plays this weekend, but baseball plays
does.
Their first series of the year this weekend. Where are they?
I believe
Lipscomb, Tennessee.
Lipscomb. Yes,
Tennessee.
that is correct. They are in Lipscomb.
Wow. Well, you know what? Much love to baseball. I hope they play better this year
than they have in the past couple of years.
Than they have since I have been here.
Same.
I don't know.
I've seen them win a couple of games,
mean,
but
we'll strive for 500.
Yeah, I don't want to be too mean, but every single year
make the MAC tournament.
But that's all we have today on the Swoop. Thanks for joining us again. Had to get something on Frye. That was just a very interesting couple hours that happened on Saturday.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. We'll try and catch you next time on the Swoop. For Shayne Nissen, for Chris Bugieski, I am Max Marko. Thank you for joining us, and tune in next time. You can find us on bgfalconmedia.com.